Conservative Voices Silenced. I'm Christine Sposato, and I'm excited to be your guide through the stories that matter. Stories of resilience, strength, and triumph in a world that doesn't always make space for conservative voices.
And I'm Elizabeth Smith, joining Christine in this journey. We know how it feels when your beliefs seem to be drowned out by the noise, but here on this podcast, we're turning up the volume.
That's right, Elizabeth, and we're creating a space where conservative voices can speak their truths, sharing the challenges they've faced and the victories they've celebrated.
Conservative Voices Silenced is not just a podcast, it's a movement that recognizes the diversity within conservatism and gives a platform to those who felt marginalized.
So whether you're a conservative looking for reliable stories or someone curious about the experiences of those with differing viewpoints, you're in the right place.
Get ready for an engaging ride as we dive into the trials and triumphs of conservatives navigating a progressive world. We invite you to join us on this journey of discovery, understanding, and most importantly, amplifying voices that deserve to be heard.
This is Conservative Voices Silenced, where silence ends and the conversation begins. All right, and here is Joseph Lenard. Joseph, tell us a little bit about yourself, your mission, and what you have going on.
First, I'm popping a couple of Advil for those of you on the video. Not illicit, illegal drugs, just a couple of Advil. I got a pinch in my neck because, like, pain again, pain. But at any rate, Joseph M. Lenard, I have to put the middle initial M in there because while my name looks French, it's not Lenard, it's Leonard without an O, but there is a Joseph Lenard out of South Carolina who is also an author. So
right,
to make that distinction, right, I have to put the middle initial in there. If I'd have gotten my Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You book out in 2006, which is when I actually first wrote it, but I felt there were pieces missing. I had a beginning, I had a middle, I had an end. I already sent in a rough draft copy to the copyright office to copyright it and protect it then. But if I'd have got my book out in 2006, I would have been Joseph Lenard. I would have beat him to the name use.
Right.
But I felt there was something missing. And 15 years later, I picked it up and finished it. I got the inspiration for what I felt was missing. So Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You dropped in 2022. I picked it back up in 2021. But yeah, that's the way too long, more than anybody needs to know version of why I am Joseph Lenard. I don't know.
Joseph M. Lenard, tell us about Terror Strikes.
Yes, again, like most of my writings, it came to me in a dream. Most of my writings come to me. I like to say my books are not from me, they are through me. The inspiration, whether you want to call it God or the cosmic universe or whatever, come to me in dreams. And if I wake up in the morning and the dream is still present, that to me tells me I should write about it. And indeed, in 2006, I'm not going to give away the dream because I don't want to spoiler alert the book, right? But it came to me and I started writing it. And again, like I said, in 2006, I did have what I thought was a good beginning, a solid middle, and an ending that I really felt was necessary. And it's very different from your average normal kind of book ending. Again, not to give it away. So if you pick up my book at a bookstore, don't go to the ending. You'll ruin the whole book. Because I know some people like to cheat, right? They'll look at the cover and, they don't judge a book by its cover. Well, that's a bunch of bogus. Martin Luther King Jr., don't judge a person by their cover, but the content of their character. But your book, your cover matters. So if they catch it, some people like to look if there's a, an acknowledgement or an intro or something. But some people, I know probably one or two of you out there in this audience, cheat and jump to the back of the book, which is why I put some additional pages of stuff like an afterword beyond the book to try to prevent them from reading the end of the story, which would completely ruin the whole story. Yeah, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, again, started in 2006, finished in 2021, dropped in 2022. I call it faction. It's
Okay.
historical fiction, aka faction. Part fact, part fiction, because
Okay.
the fact helps educate some people,
Mhm.
plus it helps lend credibility to the fictional aspects of the story. And I like to say, I'm going to cheat. For those of you seeing this on video, you see me kind of turning my back to you. I like to say about the book, yes, about terrorism, but not a book about death, but life and living. And I wrote this down so I could cheat. So now my memory, I'd forget it. Life over death, hope over fear, faith over despair, love over hate, good over evil, individualism over collectivism. So, yeah, it gets involved in politics, not just terrorism. Freedom over tyranny, family and friends.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds like a great book.
Well, certainly I'm biased, but hell yes, it's the best book ever written. Are you kidding me? Right? We got to keep a sense of humor.
Well, I am someone who skips to the back of the book.
Oh, busted!
I am, because I enjoy the book more if there's not so much suspense. I'm not a fan of suspense. So if I know what is going to happen, then I can just relax and enjoy the story.
Yeah.
And with movies, I'm the same way. I don't watch suspenseful movies because I get too nervous. So I have a reason and a purpose, and I keep reading, and I enjoy the book more. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I haven't read it yet, Joseph, but it's on my list. It's on Amazon.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I have 5 international books. I'm the holder of more than 3 dozen copyrights, but currently I have 5 books internationally available, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. But yes,
Okay.
80% of all books are indeed sold through Amazon. If you like an ebook, most of my books are fine on ebook, but I highly recommend Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You in the printed form. And
Okay.
the reason for that is there is some special formatting in there that it's just easier to understand and follow in a printed sense. And the other thing I was saying, we got to keep a sense of humor. A book on terrorism, there's a comic relief chapter to make that very point. No matter how serious all this stuff is going on around us, gotta keep a sense of humor, or we'll be in the corner in the fetal position, sucking on our thumb, crying, "What was me? Oh, the end is nigh!" Right?
So it's easy to go there. Joseph, tell us about Christitutional Politics.
Christitutionalist Politics. Christian constitutionalism. Chrisstitutionalist. It sounds like it's spelled with an A, but it's an I. Christ-I-tutionalist. Christitutionalist Politics. My podcast, I have 2 versions of the book out now. CTP2 for short, just dropped July 1st of this year.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. As well as Podcasting Quick Start Guide, which came out May 1st of this year. So, podcasting is all the rage, and frankly, we may not need extra competition, but if someone's looking to start a podcast on the low key to start, I tell them how they can do that. I also, one of my international books is how to write a book and get it published, hints, tips, and techniques. Because a lot of shows I'd be on to talk about terror strikes, they'd say, just come back and talk about publishing, writing and publishing. So I went on Amazon and said, there's a million books. How to put your book on Amazon? Well, you don't need a book for that. You could just read Amazon's help files for that. So there's no real book on how to go from concept of a book to writing it, scene development, character development, publishing options that are realistic for you or not, promoting after you publish. I wrote how to write a book and get it published, its tips and techniques after all the interviews talking about terror strikes. Hence, now that I'm doing Christitutionalist Politics podcast, I figured, hey, if I trademarked that term, if someone wants to do a podcast, may as well do Podcasting Quick Start Guide. But yeah, in June of 2023, I started the Christitutionalist Politics podcast because I felt kind of a calling after my Terror Strikes book is a quasi-Christian book, but it's, not a Bible thumping, beat somebody over the head with it. Yeah, I'm not looking to preach to the choir with that. I'm trying to reach others where they may be. And if they, at the end of that book, feel maybe I should look more into this Christianity thing, that's great. That's positive.
Right.
So after that book, I decided, I have a friend, Darlene, who said, you should be on the radio. You know a lot. You're easygoing. I can ramble forever. So she said, you should be on the radio. So I finally said, yeah, let's do a podcast. So in June of 2023, I started Christitutionalist Trademark Politics podcast. Although it is trademarked, I certainly want that in the nomenclature now. And please, I'm happy to have people use it. I want people to become, that are Christians, part of the Christitutionalist army, more or less.
Right. So explain to us, Joseph, about how you have connected the founding fathers and Christianity and the Constitution, and how that inspired you to start this movement and the.
Well, it's pretty simple. We were founded as a Judeo-Christian ethos environment. John Adams came right out and said, our constitutional republic, not a mobocracy. We are a meritocracy. We are not an ineptocracy or kleptocracy like a lot of people are trying to turn us into. We are a constitutionally limited republic. And our founders, John Adams, said our Constitution is basically not functional, or we are not functional as a republic without a moral, quasi-religious people that understand morals, ethics, values, principles. But like today, there was a recent dust-up about the George Washington flag. The one with the evergreen tree on it, says an appeal to heaven under it.
Yeah.
Well, the same people on the left who for the last 50 years have been telling us our founding fathers really weren't religious at all, a lie, now are trying to say anyone that flies that flag, and I have on my front lawn, is actually a white Christian nationalist. Now, well, I thought you said Washington wasn't religious. You can't have it both ways. It's not what that flag meant.
Interesting. And I wasn't aware of that flag until just the last year. Can you tell us a little bit more about the flag and the history? Because I didn't know anything about it until fairly recently.
Yeah, again, well, most refer to our founders as deists, But indeed, really, most of them indeed were Christians. Some of them indeed were Jewish, and hence our Christian Judeo foundations, and our nation based on the Bible, biblical principles, community, not communism. Community is biblical. It's voluntary. I am personally commanded to be my brother's keeper. That is a personal commandment, a personal commitment. But the Bible also says there is a distinction between the unable and the unwilling. I have no obligation to you whatsoever if you refuse to do anything for yourself and expect me to pull you in the cart. Hence, Ayn Rand Atlas Shrugged, right? And we saw that with the Bradford colony, if we got time to get into that later. But yes, community, voluntary, charity, voluntary giving being our brother's keeper. Widows and orphans are mentioned, but also versus communism, which is forced, not voluntary. Theft and redistribution, not charity. Even though communists will claim it's a commune, it's a derivative of community. No, it's a bastardization of the biblical principle. Like I've started, you don't have to learn from Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Che, Xi, Mao, more recently, Chavez and Maduro in Venezuela. Communism fails everywhere it's tried. Every time. It's because human nature. It is why Jesus said it also, the poor will always be among you. That was not an economic statement. That was a human nature statement. Humans can be lazy and not want to do for themselves. So they will always be among you because they will refuse to do anything for themselves. And exactly why communism fails where community works. There has to be incentives and disincentives. But the Bradford colony was the Mayflower Compact. We've all heard it. We've all been taught it. What you weren't taught, though, because it's an inconvenient fact, is it was a communist compact. It was a commonwealth. Everybody owned everything collectively. They almost all starved to death because of it. Because, again, human nature, as Jesus alluded to, more and more people say, well, I get a house, I get 3 meals a day, I get supposedly free. Nothing is ever free. It takes capital, it takes labor, right? But so more and more people get lazy and want to be carried in the cart, and the Bradford colony almost all starved to death. So Bradford, who thankfully was still in charge at that time, re-examined, yes, community, good, communism, bad, even though that term wasn't there yet. And he instituted what our nation was founded upon. As Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story, right? Now, the history. He instituted private property ownership, a sense of, when you own something, you respect it more. You take care of it more. If you're able to then use your property to then earn more wealth than somebody else, whether you say greed or not, but the Bible does not say the root of all evil is money. It says the root of all evil is the love of money. That's the distinction and the complete twisting and distortion of Jesus's words. Communists purposefully twist and distort it because they don't want you to know. Private property, individual rights rather than collective rights, and blah, 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 as they say The rest is history. We then went on to become the greatest nation on the planet that has lifted more people out of poverty, not just in our own nation, but around the world than all other nations in the history of this planet combined.
Right. Yeah, I just wonder, the social norm has shifted so much in my lifetime from the expectation that everyone supports themselves. Everyone is responsible for
Unless
themselves.
unable. Unless unable.
Right. And, now the social norm is the expectation that, the government or somebody else is going to take care of me. And I often wonder how the pendulum is going to swing back again to where it was 50, 60, 70. Well, since the beginning of time, you were supposed to take care of yourself. In my lifetime, let's just say 60 years ago.
Yeah, I turned 62 this year, so I'm with you on that. Yeah, no, and we're seeing that pendulum swing back. God works in mysterious ways, as the saying goes. The
Yeah.
Wuhan hysteria, it was used for good. People finally saw the Zoom classrooms, and it's like, this is the crap you are teaching my children? I call it the new core R's. And I do mention this in Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, because again, it's about so many things. Terrorism is just the thread that ties it all together. Martin and his family are discussing about education. I call it the new R's: radicalism, raunch, and racism. Right? Raunch, you've got all this perversion being peddled in schools. Racism, CRT isn't trying to help resolve racism, which I'll get into that in a second. It's promoting it. It's promoting identity politics and division. And again, racism, I go on and on all the time about the twisting of language. It isn't racism. We are one race. Whether we're white, we're black, or any shade between, we are the human race. We are subclasses and subcultures.
Yes.
Within the white community, there are different subcultures within that subclass. Same with the black community. It's like I saw Gutfeld show. I watch that regularly. Otherwise, I usually watch Newsmax. I still watch Gutfeld on Fox News, and Tyrus, if you don't watch that, a black gentleman was co-hosting that day. And he also, I'm so glad to hear somebody else talk about that. It's like, because Kamala, all of a sudden, like Hillary in 2016, she's out there at a rally, and all of a sudden, I got a Southern accent. A fraud. What a phony. But the point being, yeah, there are different subcultures, even within the black community. And he's like outraged. He's like, you're the racists. Again, wrong word, but you're the classists, the culturalists. You are stereotyping all blacks talk that way? No.
Yep.
No. That's ridiculous.
Elizabeth, do you want to talk about your experience with your kids in school? And and Zoom classes and CRT.
Yeah. Well, luckily for our school, we're a smaller school, so it took them 3 months fighting parents before they put in the SEL, the social emotional learning, which also has that in it. It's got questions based on race and stuff like that, which is absolutely ridiculous. But when we were fighting it and they had these meetings with the parents, and they're like, look, this is what it is. It's fine. It's safe. There's nothing wrong in here that the kids have to see. But they were only showing before you could log in. Once you logged in, there was so much more that they weren't showing the parents. And we were like, but the company that owns that and the company that owns that and so on, they're all into the DEI hiring, all of that stuff. And it's like, it's about not just about the SEL, it's about the companies that are involved. And there's no limit to what they can put in it. Like, they can change the curriculum at any time. They can completely put in all of the questions about, the white kid, the black kid, this and that, and they can get away with it. And it took us, we fought for 3 months. We went to every single school board meeting those 3 months. They even had meetings for the parents to show how great it is. And it's just teaching your kids how to behave. And that's totally okay. That's what we want to do. That we're trying to help the families that won't teach their kids how to behave. No.
Right.
Yeah, that's not what it is at all. I mean,
Nope.
That's what they're showing you. That's the papers your kids bring home.
That's
They're not
the
showing you it.
That's the lie they tell publicly,
Yep.
but privately. Three things you brought up in my mind. First off, I don't know exactly when this show was going to air, but Season 2, Episode 59 of my Christitutionalist Politics podcast is going to drop this coming Saturday, which would be August the 3rd, is titled, Who is Babysitting Whom? And it's in part with this, right? The left think your children belong to them. You are just the night sitter.
Mhm.
But you are a caring parent that knows they're your children and you need to be involved. They took out of the schools to kill him, which the whole point of the book was about the ridiculousness of judging on skin tone rather than content of character, and what's put in its place? Colleen Hoover softcore porn perversion in the schools instead. And the other thing, DEI, you mentioned. I go on rants and raves about this. Diversity. We are the most diverse nation on the planet. We are a nation of legal immigrants. We've all, unless if you were born Native American on a reservation, we are all descendants of immigrants from all the corners of the world. We e pluribus unum, from many melting pot. We already are the most diverse society on the planet. So they're not about diversity. Diversity is warped and twisted like everything the left touches. Warped, twisted. They're not for diversity and they're not for inclusion. What are they peddling now? Black-only dorms, black-only graduations.
Yeah.
The Democrats, or as I call them, the fascocrats, because, and this is not hyperbole, research for, as Reagan said, trust but verify. And I don't mean go to Google. I mean go to DuckDuckGo or Jibberoo or FreeSpoke to find real things. Compare the Communist Manifesto, the Nazi Party platform, the National Socialist Deutschland Arbeiter Party platform, and today's DNC platform. There are 28 planks of the Nazis in today's Democrat Party platform. That's why they call everybody else a Nazi, to project, to deflect that it's in there. Don't take my word for it. Look for yourself. The two obvious ones are gun confiscation and socialized medicine that basically the Nazis invented, because it's not about healthcare. It's about power and control. Kamala, the other day, his flip-flops, no longer for eliminating all private health insurance. Yeah, you're a liar. You are. Because they want a federalized system. It's like, I don't want you to have to get approval from your insurance company for this or that. It's no different if the government runs it. It's a set of government bureaucrats that decide than whether you get something or not. And Elizabeth, since I know you have children, as a deep state guy, and your child needs something, well, Elizabeth, we'd really like to help your child, but we need you to toe the deep state fascocrats line on this or that. Then we'll be happy to help your child get better, right? It's not about health, it's about power and control. Those are the two obvious planks, and there are 26 others. Yeah, sure, the language is more flowery, so it's not a directly translated from German to English into their platform, but it's there. The left has to lie and project. So again, I've gone down another rabbit hole. But yeah, they're not about diversity. They're not about inclusion. And equity is bull. There's no such. We have freedom and equality of opportunity. Again, avail yourself of that opportunity. And if you're too lazy to do so, we have no obligation to you.
That the rabbit hole was sort of swirling around something that I wanted to also bring up that Elizabeth and I have talked about before is, so when they bring in that testing that, a third party, a corporation has been contracted to develop and implement in schools, it's all computerized. They can collect all the data on all these kids. They can profile these kids. They're collecting data on them starting when they're children. They have their social security numbers. They have their names. They're collecting all this information on your children. And when they need that data for, as you're alluding to, whatever time, to manipulate them, to target them for whatever might be in the future, they already have all of that data on our kids, and our kids are victims.
It's not about, it's not education. It's power and control. The Department of Education opposed it. I was only in high school at the time it was implemented. I knew enough then. I was already involved in politics in high school. I was the first in my family to become a Republican. Wait a minute. This is a violation of the Constitution. We are a republic. You do not get to dictate from the federal level, tyrannically, dictatorially, your imposition of this must be how it's done. That is a states' rights issue. And even more so, more importantly, it shouldn't even be done in your state capital. It needs to be done locally through your local school boards. So yeah, the Department of Education, another example of leftism. Not about, we care about your kids. No, we want to co-opt, we want to indoctrinate, we want to make sure federally, dictatorially, you must indoctrinate them this way, and they become wards of the state. Hitlery, as I call her. It takes a village, right? It takes a village is biblical. Community. Elizabeth, you might need me to babysit your kids so you have a night out. That's part of community. It's voluntary. You don't get to order me to watch your kids, which I'd probably really screw up your kids if you're forcing me to watch them. But you get the point. Community matters. That's biblical, not Hitlerese. It takes a fascist state to raise a child. Big difference.
That's actually called data mining. That's a thing. You can research it. You can see, they put all your kids' information, and they don't tell people that you can opt your child out from every single survey they do in school, from every single test that they give. They won't tell you. Yeah.
I'm a former IT guy, Believe me, I used to work for Kmart Corporation before it merged with Sears, became Sears Holding. They weren't interested in retail anymore. They wanted to sell off all the properties to make more large buckets of real estate profits in the short term, and to heck with the retail long-term strategy. That's why you won't find a Kmart or a Sears anywhere anymore. But yeah, I used to work for Kmart in IT, so believe me, I know all about mining and tracking. But a private company better serve your customers. It depends on intent. It can be good, it can be evil, and never trust government to, despite their claims about my intentions are so good. Bull. Shall be known by your fruits, to go back to the Bible, right? I don't care what you say, what you're doing, I pay attention to. You are judged by your fruits, your results, not your hot air rhetoric.
Well, this is a tangent, and I should refrain, but I'm not. But since we're talking about data mining, something I just remembered is an acquaintance of mine is a realtor out here in rural Colorado, and he said that recently he showed some property that was some acreage. So he's showing his prospective buyers the property. He's out and he has, how people will wire up a gate and there's a loop of wire around a fence post and you have to pull the wire off in order to open the gate to go through. He said he was thinking in his mind, never said a word. He didn't have his phone with him, phone on. He didn't take any pictures, nothing. He said he was thinking in his mind, there are now better devices to do this and you don't have to wrestle with that wire anymore. And he's standing there with his clients and he's thinking this in his head. He said that he got home and that night there were ads on his computer for these gate devices. And he said, I didn't say a word to anyone. I was just thinking it in my head. Now, I know that's a tangent. I know that's off. But as we're talking about data mining, everything.
Well, he must have said something, and his phone picked it up.
But he said he.
Yeah, your smartphones are smart. People are dumb now, but smartphones can't read our minds yet. Elon's working on that. But yeah, targeted ads based on just a word. Maybe he had his phone out. He must have said, again, former IT guy, they can't read our minds, but you can gate, fence, lock. If he said any combination of that in a hour period, it can put it all together and bam, there's your targeted ad. Now, again, that can be good. That can be helpful for some people shopping for things, but never trust government with that kind of tech. They always use it for evil. Because I forget who says it, right? Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Whomever said that, right? We are a government of the people, by the people, from the people. We the people. There's a reason why that is in big, bold, in-your-face letters. And as Franklin said, a republic if you can keep it. We've got to stop being so damn lazy and be involved. Hence the term bread and circus. And I've got a couple shows on that, right? They want you consumed in bread and circus. As long as you got a little bit of bread for your belly and entertainment on the TV, they can distract you from being involved. And that's when it all goes bad, because there are some good people in government in there for the right reasons, but that power attracts evildoers. It attracts people who are power hungry, money hungry at our expense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes. So, what would you like to leave us with, Leonard? Any thoughts, suggestions? Tell us about your website, how to get a hold of you, your books, and any last words of.
Yeah. Well, first the website, so I don't forget that. Joseph M. Leonard US. Because I'm here in the United States, right? So I didn't want a .com. I'm not a corporation. So, but again, it looks like Lenard. It's actually Polish. It was probably Leonard Owałowski. At some point, it got chopped to Leonard somehow. Joseph M. Leonard without an O.US. My primary historical fiction, aka faction book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You. There is a site dedicated just to that. Terror Strikes. That book isn't available yet. I keep nagging the internet people. That book has got to be an extension. Books come out by the thousands every week. There's got to be a book extension. So Terror Strikes .info for that book. My other 4 currently available international books, available Amazon and elsewhere. Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You was the first international book. The second, How to Write a Book and Get It Published, Hints, Tips, and Techniques. And maybe you're not interested in writing a book. Think of it as a tell-all, though I don't drop any Kardashian names. Think of it as a behind-the-scenes book. What does an author go through for that book you do read and enjoy, for you to be able to have that book to read and enjoy? It's not just for writers, it's for everybody who's an avid reader, too. The third, Christitutionalist Politics, which was an offshoot of my podcast. Then came Podcasting Quick Start Guide, because I have a podcast. Heck, if maybe I can help some people start a podcast. And then most recently, Christitutionalist Politics 2. I'm not sure if there'll be a 3 and a 4 and a 5 or not yet. We'll see.
Oh, that's great. And if you look Joseph up on Amazon, all of his books are listed there and on your website. So you can find everything you need to know. Any words of wisdom you want to leave us with to ponder while we're trying to go to sleep tonight? We can mull things up.
Oh, that's a good question. Let me quote. It's been my life philosophy, at least for the last 3-4 decades, that I've developed. So I have my character Martin say it in Terror Strikes. Remember, things could always be better, but they could be worse. Right? So before I whine, moan, and complain too much, I remind myself there are a whole lot of other people that have things a whole lot worse off than I do, and I myself could be in a worse situation than what I am.
Great. It was just a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh,
Elizabeth?
thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad we were able to get past our technical difficulties to actually get this recorded. A little behind the scenes there for you people out there. Yeah, we were supposed to start recording at 10. We got started maybe 10:45-ish.
No.
But hey, at the end of the day, it worked. Here we are.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Take care. God bless.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.